With that, I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the MWPA Citizens Oversight Committee for February 22nd, 2023. Martina, could you please call the roll for us?
Absolutely. Jenny Biggs.
Here.
And can you hear me okay?
Yes. And Jenny said yes.
Okay. Larry Chu.
Here, and on my side, you're coming over a little choppy.
I'm really having a difficult time.
Yeah. Don't know if that's you or me.
Okay, I think it might be me, but I see Larry there, and I'm assuming he said yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kingston Cole.
Yes.
Thank you. Lucy Dilworth.
Yes.
Larry Minikis.
Yes.
Rebecca Suggs.
Yes.
And let's see, Jennifer Howard.
Yes. A horse, yes.
John McCauley.
He just texted me. He's working through some technical difficulties. He'll be in here shortly.
Okie dokie. And Chair Randall.
Here.
Thank you. It looks like we have everyone except for Member McCauley, who will be joining us in just a bit.
Okay. So with that said, do any committee members or staff wish to ask for agenda adjustments? Lucy.
Thank you. I'm going to move that we table agenda item 7B3 until a future date on the grounds that it does not meet the necessary standard to allow the COC to have an informed discussion. So maybe we could discuss it a little later when it's in a more fully formed state.
Okay. So was that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
I'll offer a second. We can pull the item.
Okay. We will need a roll call vote. Does Larry, do you have anything to say?
No, I just wanted to know if Jennifer, I guess, is the work plan chair. Does she concur with that?
I don't think I have to concur. I just have to vote whichever way I choose to vote.
Yeah, but if you're going to differ from the proposal, I'd like to hear why.
I see. Okay. The work plan committee has been working to put together a report, and we are proposing in our reports to do some things a little differently than they've been done. And we thought it would be beneficial to have a committee-wide conversation about those things while our work is still in progress, to see how others thought about what we're doing.
I would think that if the committee is looking for direction, and because of the size of our group requires it to then be on our agenda, that we would want to provide them with that feedback.
I'm sorry, Larry, could you say that one more time? I think I understood you, but.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking for feedback and we don't have a mechanism other than to discuss it in this committee because of the size of your subcommittee, any discussion beyond that would be a violation of the Brown Act, that this is the only venue you have. So if you're looking for that feedback, I would think we'd want to discuss it here.
Right, exactly. I mean, that is our opportunity for feedback, is right here.
Okay, I had the clarification I need.
Okay, Martina,
May, Pat,
yes,
in this case, may I withdraw? I would like to withdraw my second at this time.
Then I will offer a second.
okay, so that's Lucy made the motion and Kingston seconded. And Martina, can you have a roll call vote, please?
Can we hear the motion one more time, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to move that the agenda item 7B3 be tabled until later on the grounds that it does not meet the necessary standard to allow the COC to have an informed discussion and form any conclusions. So I propose we discuss it later when it is in a more fully formed state.
Thank you, Lucy.
Okay, Martina,
Certainly, and then that's a motion by member Dilworth, seconded by Kingston Cole, to pull, it says to table 7B, correct? Just for my notes.
yes,
Sorry, and starting with our roll call, Jenny Biggs,
Sorry, I believe I'm in favor as long as the later discussion is also approved. I'm a little confused about the motion, sorry, but I want to make sure that if we have this motion approved, that it does have an opportunity to be heard.
Yes.
Okay,
Would be.
Okay. all right, I'll vote in favor.
okay, and member Chu,
Nay,
nay, and member Cole,
Aye.
and member Dilworth,
Aye.
and member Minikis,
Okay, aye. We're moving that way. I understand.
and member Suggs,
Aye.
and member Macaulay, he hasn't made it to the meeting just yet. Member Howard,
nay,
and Chair Randolph.
no,
Okay, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3 no's. And we have 1, 2, we have 5 yes, and then we have
4 no's.
I'm sorry,
4 ayes.
4 and 4. My apologies.
Four
So
and
we
2, actually, as I understand it, since John hasn't joined us yet. So
Oh,
No,
4, 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes.
Yes, 4-4.
Okay.
So we have 4-4. So the motion
wait, wait.
motion does not carry.
does not carry.
Okay.
Unfortunately, member Macaulay's not here. Who he would have been the tiebreaker, but we have an even amount of yes to no. The
Okay.
motion does not carry.
okay, moving on. We come to open time for public expression. Public is welcome to address the Citizens Oversight Committee at this time on matters not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matters not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. And could I ask everyone to please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphones when you're not reporting out. Martina, do we have Member Suggs?
So I just need to ask, I'm sorry, one more time. Can we go back to that last vote?
Yeah, because since Martina's having connectivity issues, I'll go through the roll call that I have. I have I votes from Larry Minnickus, Rebecca Suggs, Lucy Dilworth, Jenny Biggs, and Kingston Cole. No votes from Jennifer Howard, Pat Randolph, and Larry Chu.
That's 5-3.
Yes,
Yes,
Ayes, 5 ayes and 3 noes.
correct.
that's correct.
And we just said it was 4-4 and therefore,
No, that was corrected to 5-3.
which means we're taking it off the agenda and moving it.
That's what the
Yes.
motion was that was voted 5-3. Yes.
Thank you. I missed-
I'm sorry, I was late. Anyway, so where are we?
We're at, we were just, we moved on to public discussion or open time for public expression following a 5-3 vote to pull B3 off this.
Sorry to you, I'm getting bad internet. You said we're gonna pull,
Yeah, in your absence, the vote was,
There was a motion, Member Macaulay, to pull item 7B. And so we took a vote and that vote was 5-3 in favor to pull the motion and
And-
table it to a later discussion.
and 7B is,
yes,
My apologies. So item 7B is for, it was for the work plan committee highlights, correct, Chair Randolph?
that is correct.
so, obviously I wasn't able to comment before this happened, and I do have some comments with regards to this. If I may, all the vote has been taken. I think there's a couple of comments I think are important to make.
I don't know at this point the proper procedure. Mark, could you advise?
I believe since we'd already moved on to the open time for public expression, we moved past that agenda item. I'm not sure we can return to it.
Larry?
Larry, yeah, Larry Chu.
This is a part I'm clear on, so maybe Martina or Mark might know. If someone in the majority is willing to make a motion to allow John to speak, then it's okay. If the full group says it's okay. The
One
motion
person in the
motion-
majority?
No, the motion has to be made by a person in the majority.
Well, I think that we have moved on and
Yeah.
it's time to get to public expression.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just think that both parts of it kind of become.
I think this is
so
utterly unfair. First off, I want to let you know that the meeting notice I got had the meeting starting at 6:30, not 5:30. And it had it not as a meeting on Zoom. So while I was shocked to see it started at 5:30, couldn't even get in because the meeting is inaccurate. And I've been talking about this for months, that the calendarization is wrong. And given these conditions that are going on here, I think it's really kind of absurd that I can't spend a couple of minutes commenting on this topic that I obviously feel strongly about, which I couldn't vote on, couldn't set up ahead of time. And now we're in this situation. I find that unfair.
Well, you can speak the next time it comes up, all right, in the next meeting. Why don't you just be patient and hold your ammunition until then, okay?
Make a comment. One of the votes was predicated on the idea that was stated in the motion that we would have this discussion at a future date. The motion has language that says that there needs to be some change to either the setup or the document, but we know that all has to happen in public forum anyway. So we're just going to delay this by a month as far as I can tell.
Fine.
Okay,
Then
very good.
perhaps we shouldn't have a meeting of the writing committee until this matter is resolved, because there are some significant issues that relate to the writing committee that are tied into this whole process.
Well, I think we'll get to the writing committee when we come to my report, and you'll see, perhaps be interested in what I have to say.
That's fine.
Yeah, Larry Chu.
Yeah, I think one of the things that concerns me with the motion in and of itself, because we have a split vote plus the discussion we're having about not permitting member McCauley to speak, is that, you know, there's a formal process which we could follow letter of the law. And there's kind of the spirit of it in the sense that, you know, we're kind of a friendly group that we try to have all voices heard.
And we will in due
Well,
course.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, in due time, what's the difference between now and a month from now, especially in the case of, say, Jennifer, who's looking for feedback, even if there are some people who believe that it's not ready for discussion.
What, Larry, one of the problems is you're on the losing end of this vote. Right, and it's just, you're trying to reintroduce it and
You
bring
know
it
what,
back.
guys, let's just move
No.
on. Let's just move on.
You know, just come
All
on.
right, let's just move on.
Okay. So we were,
headed into public expression.
yes, we were headed into public expression. Can you see, Martina, can you check to see if there are any members of the public who would like to speak at this time?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak at this time on the current agenda item, the open time for public expression, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to unmute yourself. And Madam Chair, it does not appear that we have a hand raised for public comment.
Okay. So
It looks like, sorry about that. It looks like Ron Arias got his hand up just before. Did you want to go ahead and allow that?
Sure.
And Ron Arliss, you should be able to unmute yourself. And just to remind you that we have a 3-minute comment threshold, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm not quite familiar with how you guys did it, but I kept putting my hand up. I felt like it was waving because it went up and down and up and down. With regards to this thing you guys were discussing, I understand it's 7B3, and you ought to make it clear in your minutes that it's not 7B, it's 7B-3, so that there's no confusion. But I would ask, as a member of the public, that when you do bring it back for discussion, that the issues are fleshed out in, and whether you call it a report or however, so that those members of the public, such as myself, can understand what the issues are and the discussion, because in reading through the agenda packet, I don't see that too well. I see a discussion of some items, but I am unclear. And I think you would behoove both the public and yourselves to itemize the issues and tell where the problems, if any, are, so that we can understand exactly what's, when I say we, I mean members of the public can understand what the issues are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Martina, are there any other members of the public wishing to speak?
If there are any additional members of the public who wish to speak on the current item of the agenda, open time for public expression, please raise your hand in the reactions. And ma'am, there are no additional hands for comment.
Pat, may I make a informational comment to the
Yes.
public speak, very short, is that if Ron opened the agenda, it only shows the agenda, but if you open the agenda packet, the report, all the reports are in there. So that's all I wanted to point out, that there's actually 2 different links on the MWPA page. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the executive officer's report. So Executive Officer Mark Brown will provide us a report at this time.
And my apologies that my internet seems to be becoming unstable right at the beginning of the meeting. Please give me a thumbs up if you are hearing me without it being too choppy. I will keep my video off so as I won't become digitally scrambled. I think all of you know, because of your frequent attendance to our meetings, the work plan development is in full swing. And is doing a fantastic job of working with all of our member agencies, the Advisory Technical Committee and the Operations Committee to formulate this convening of 17 member agencies into a work plan. So they're all working hard on that. And worked a lot behind the scenes with our web developer to fine tune the work plan portal to make it easier for our member agencies to submit our projects. So we're looking forward to daylighting the projects and working through the prioritization process and overall budgeting and funding. Just another reminder for Form 700, it's time to get those completed. If you haven't already, I know some of you already have. Many of you were able to watch our Willow Labs presentation on the data that they are doing for on-parcel risk reduction. We're working with them to have an additional presentation on the risk reduction that we are accomplishing through evacuation route clearings, wildland or WUI shaded fuel breaks. And then what we are really excited about is at the March meeting for the board of directors, we will receive a presentation on the evacuation ingress egress risk assessment. I've said this many times in so many meetings, I can't remember if I've said it in this meeting, but we went into that risk assessment with high expectations, and I really feel like they are exceeding those expectations. We did have 5 beta areas where modeling was completed. And we have been meeting so far with 3 of the 5 member agencies that those beta tests were conducted in. And I've seen the presentation probably 6-7 times between the technical advisory team, ATC, ops, and these member agencies. And the conversation continues to get better and better. And we are exploring more and more ways to use the data that we'll get out of that. And then the last thing that I wanted to discuss is when we were discussing with legal counsel over the last couple of days, specifically on the appropriateness of item 7B3 being on the agenda. We walked through a process of, is it, can it be or can it not be on the agenda rather than should it be or should it not be? It wasn't, we felt for staff and for legal counsel, it wasn't a should question for us, it was can it be question. But as we were exploring this, the process of bringing ad hoc subcommittees that have 3 or 4 members, delivering a work product, a written work product to a 4-member writing committee, it started opening up some questions as does this create a serial meeting because of discussions amongst a quorum of the legislative body being the COC. This has been with Emily Longfellow, who is at our firm that we have for our general counsel. However, she is not our lead general counsel. As you know, Megan Holt Azevedo is our lead general counsel. She's on vacation currently and unreachable. So Emily and I discussed this, and we feel that it would be appropriate to sit down, walk through the entire process with Emily and Megan together about ad hoc subcommittees delivering to another ad hoc subcommittee and where the lines of the Brown Act work within that. So more to follow for next meeting and perhaps a suggestion from staff for an agenda item. End of report, and I'll take questions.
Kingston?
Yeah, Mark, one thing that hasn't come up, you're talking about all this data that around the evacuation studies. Who owns the data? So you got some intellectual property rights. I'm just wondering how you're working that out.
It was worked out in the professional services agreement and a software as a service agreement that the data belongs to the MWPA.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. Well negotiated. Thank you.
Rebecca?
I just wanted to remind the committee that when and if, not if, when Willow Labs does their presentation, whenever Mark can get that done, hell or high water, go see it. those, I don't know who else was on that call, but that, as I mentioned before, that was one of the most encouraging, best reports I've seen in a long time. And I think there's applicability across MWPA for it, not just the one thing they were asked to look at. That was it.
Thank you.
And I am going to explore or experiment with my video being online. It seems like my connection's gotten better.
Larry Menikes.
Mark, I just want to thank you for your clarification on the serial meeting issue and appreciate that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it's time to go out for public expression on the executive, public comment on the executive officer's report.
If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item, the executive officer's report, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And Chair, it does not appear that we have any comments at this time.
Okay, so are there any further comments or discussion from the committee on the executive officer's report? If not, we will move on to the consent calendar. So the public has the opportunity, the public has the opportunity to comment on the consent calendar prior to our asking if anyone wants to pull the one item on the consent calendar. So Martina, can you see if the public has if anyone in the public wants to comment on the consent calendar?
Certainly. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar item, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And Madam, we do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay, so do any members of the committee wish to pull the one item on consent calendar, which is the minutes from the last meeting? Rebecca.
When you say pull the item, if I have an edit that I didn't think to send out ahead of time, how does that fit in?
Since we only have one item on the agenda for the consent calendar, it would be really easy for you to make that correction to the group and have the motion include the amendment.
Okay, I have an edit.
Do you wish to give that now, and then we will go to Larry for comment?
Sure. On page 6 of the agenda, item 10A, two edits, one very minor. In the description, the agenda refers to the chair, or I think to the chair as he, and it was,
Yeah, I noticed that.
you could change it to she. And normally I wouldn't even bother, except that my other edit is in that same item. At the very end, what the minutes say is that Lucy requested of Pat whether the item would, whether the results of the monitoring committee report would be included in the packet of founding documents or guiding documents for the COC. And what the minutes say is that Pat responded, yes, as if she meant, yes, it would be included in the packet. That's not how it went. Because Lucy's comment also included, would it be included in the packet, or would we be discussing it further? And Pat's response was, yes, stay tuned. I think we'll be discussing it further. So I wanted to make it clear in the agenda that that document hasn't yet been put into a packet and won't be until we discuss it further. I don't know how you want to do that edit, Martina, but that's the gist.
Thank you so much, Member Suggs. I will make sure, oh, not only is it announced here in the public meeting, but it'll also be reflected accurately in the minutes for this meeting as well.
Excuse me,
So,
I'm a little bit confused. I thought that if that the document prepared by Member Macaulay in the fall, I thought that was in this packet. Isn't that what has been included for
It's
today?
in this packet for discussion later, yes.
Yeah.
But it was also in last month's, or not quite right, but it was discussed in last month's.
Okay, we will try to get that correct. Larry,
Well, first I want to say, Rebecca, thank you for digging into that and really clarifying that point. Shows you're paying attention. I mean, really appreciate that. And also I wanted to say is to call out Tony DeFrancis, our recording secretary, and I just appreciate the clarity of the minutes, you know, from month to month, and just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
okay. So,
Do we need a motion?
I think we need a motion, and one that is kind of clear on what the motion would be. And if I can, Rebecca, I'm going to look to you for acknowledgement that I'm paraphrasing properly, just to help this process along. That on page 6, item 10, the chair should be referred to as a she rather than a he. And then the document that was prepared by Member Macaulay back in August was referred to, but not part of the package for the meeting in January, but would be part of a future package. Packet.
Not exactly.
Okay.
So the item that we were discussing when Lucy asked her question was that subject I brought up of having a batch of guiding documents, don't know what else to call it, for the COC. And that would include, for example, Measure C, the JPA agreement, the kind of stuff that would normally be there, but also then the COC bylaws, the policies and procedures. Lucy's question at the end of that conversation was, will the document that came out of last August's discussion, that was a report from the committee, a monitoring assignment subcommittee. You see why I didn't write it down.
That it'll be part of the document inventory that we have, that we'll provide to the members of the COC.
Bueno.
Okay.
Wait,
Larry, you want to take a stab at it? I see your hand up.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is make a motion to continue this to the next meeting and allow staff to go back to the tape to get an accurate reflection of what was stated.
Good idea.
sounds good.
So Rebecca, is that a second? Or is it just a good idea?
No, good idea to table it until staff and Rebecca have a chance to go back and reword the thing.
Yeah, but Larry's motion needs a second, and I'm offering, are you offering the second?
Oh, sorry, second.
Okay.
Did you have something else to say, Larry? Larry Menekes?
Not myself, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I think the motion is to wait until staff has a chance to go back and listen to the tape and get this correct. So that is the motion. Rebecca has seconded it, and I guess we need a roll call.
Starting with Member Biggs
Aye, thank you.
and Member Chu,
Aye.
Member Cole,
Aye.
Member Dilworth,
Aye.
Member McCauley,
I'm,
Member Minikis,
Aye.
Member Suggs.
Aye.
Member Howard. And Chair Randolph.
Aye.
Motion passes by unanimous vote of all in attendance.
Okay, so we are moving on now to the monitoring reports. We start with Advisory Technical Committee, Rebecca Suggs.
Thank you. And I totally blanked out. Yes, we did have a meeting. And oh my gosh, I have 2 pages of notes. However, it was meaty and there was really good discussion, but I would say nothing particularly that we need to pull out to out of COC. No, I think we're good. So
Okay.
to report.
Okay, so the next 2 are actually me, and I have to say I tried to give one or both of these away and will eventually. I'm not trying to have all of this, but we'll see a little bit better when we come to the informational item. So there was nothing really that grew out of the executive committee that I think is worthy of reporting to the committee. Out of the board meeting, there was a very interesting discussion. It was actually an item that was in the consent calendar that was pulled and discussed that had to do with the LRAD system in Southern Marin and Mill Valley and the Northern Spotted Owl. It was, the discussion of it was necessitated by a letter from Fern. And I learned a lot from this discussion. First of all, I learned the reasons for the importance of LRAD, which for those of you who are not familiar are as long-range acoustic devices. How necessary they are given the geography and frequent power shutoffs to that Southern Marin area. Also developed a great deal of respect for Anne Crelock and her knowledge and care for spotted owls and her knowledge of the LRAD systems. That the question was really had to do with where the monthly testing of the LRADs interfering with nesting of the spotted owls, and assured us that they were not. There was a very brief discussion about the staff time devoted to this kind of discussion, but also a discussion of the importance of airing these things, which I thought was all very interesting. And Larry Menekes was my secondary monitor for that meeting. And I wonder, Larry, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, I'll try to give you the crux of that is concerning Fern and the steps that Anne and team are taking to mitigate that. And the LRAD is a focused way of focusing sound very specifically, and it's going towards the Greenwood Park area, which John would be your area. And the concern is that you have the nests, I think it's about one nest about a 1/4 mile back, and no other nests other than this. And the way the system works is, and the way sound works is on a logarithmic scale. So as you get further away, it drops far more quickly, the sound levels. Through their research and testing, the professionals showed that it was at very, very low levels by the time it gets through the trees, through this process of sound attenuation. So the concern, the crux of the concern that Fern is bringing up is, okay, so you're testing this at ground level, but the nests are at 65 feet. So they're requesting, in essence, they'd like further tests done at higher altitude where the nests actually sit to see if the sound is actually attenuating at that distance. Of course, this is for the residents a safety concern because there's no cell service or very limited cell service in this area. And as to the cost, it was pointed out is that by other members of the board that they're going to want to see these systems installed. Ross, Fairfax were two of the speakers. And I'm sure Mark can add a lot more to this, but basically a lot of research has been done and it was presented. Fern feels that there's some lack there and would like to see some more. So that's why the item was pulled. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, so any questions or comments from this group? And I would recommend that everybody go and look at the discussion in the board meeting. The first 20 minutes of the board meeting was a closed session, so assuming that they have taken out the recording of the time of the closed session, should be very near to the beginning. So with that, let's move on to Operations Committee. Jennifer.
Yeah, well, Operations Committee is really getting into full swing in preparation for putting together proposals for the board in May. And it's a very interesting meeting and can never sing Anne Krelock's praises too often. But there's really nothing that I need to report back. Just super interesting and great report on the evacuation risk assessment that's ongoing. So if anybody hasn't watched it, it's a really interesting meeting.
Okay. So I had forgotten to say we'll hold, hopefully we can hold public comment until we've gotten through all of these reports. So now we have gotten through them. Are there any more questions or comments from members of the committee before we go out to the public? Okay, Martina, can you see if any members of the public have comments on the monitoring reports?
Certainly, if there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the current agenda item 7A, committee monitoring committee reports, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And Madam Chair, we do not have any hands for public comment.
Okay, any more discussion from members of the committee? Okay, we will now move on to the annual report committees. So again, I'd like to hold public comment until we get through all 4 of these, and then we will take public comment. Finance, Larry Chu.
As you recall, we had the one outstanding item we needed to resolve from last month, trying to get the numbers as well as the correct interpretation for the vegetation management requirement. So that's been resolved and made the final edits over the course of the last couple of weeks and submitted it to the writing committee this afternoon.
Okay. Transparency, Kingston.
Yeah, we finished our report and submitted it to the writing committee. I think it was last week or maybe even 10 days ago. So we're finished and happy with what we produce.
Okay, work plan. Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. In all honesty, I've been quite sick for the last couple of weeks, and so the ongoing work has really been John and Pat. So I thought maybe John, you could comment on where we're at.
Well, we were close. We had a couple of substantial to make sure we were going in the right direction on. That's obviously not going to happen. So I think we just take it to the end and submit it. And I would think we could be done in the next couple of weeks. To the writing committee, understanding that they are not allowed to change concepts, just change words, and the whole COC at a later date for deliberation.
Okay, and writing committee, Lucy. You're muted, Lucy.
Thank you. Based on the issues that have come up recently, particularly as Mark referred to the fact that the way the workflow was structured, specifically with the idea that it would be meeting the requirements of the Brown Act, have raised some issues. And so I think I'll be proposing, not for this meeting, but because it'll need to be decided on an agendized item, but I'm going to be proposing that we disband the writing committee and that every subgroup, every other subcommittee funnel their work directly to the COC. My only comment about that is that it would probably involve a number of many more meetings for the COC to get through all the issues. But we will get there. I assume if it gets on the agenda, we'll just discuss it next month.
Okay, so any questions from the committee about these reports before we go out to the public for comment? Larry, Drew.
I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it, but it was just stated. I mean, the word that's been used several times over the course of this evening have been, issues. I guess what I'm asking is, at a future meeting, will those things be discussed, because it's kind of vague.
I think there's going to be actual legal counsel on it, and it's just what constitutes a deliberative meeting and the flow of work. So I think we do. It's technical, and I think we might have council review exactly what our process is and whether it works properly.
Okay, so you're not referring to content, more process.
No, I'm only referring to whether or not it is a properly functional committee in terms of the Brown Act. Okay.
All right, thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, any other questions before we go out for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will take comments from the public on the writing committee reports. Martina, could you see if there are any members of the public wishing to comment?
Madam Chair, we actually do not currently have a public for comment.
Okay. Then they do not wish to comment.
Can I make a really brief comment?
Yeah.
We're a young agency still, we're a young committee, and these are growing pains, and they're healthy. And that's all I want to say.
Yeah.
It's a healthy.
Thank you. And does anyone else have comments or wish to discuss this any further? And thank you, Larry, for your comments. So now we move on to informational items. And the one informational item that is there is the new what am I trying to say? The new calendar. And this grew out of the need that was discussed at the last meeting to find a slot for Jenny, and the need to accommodate some schedules of other members. So you've hopefully all had a chance to look at that item, and there should be no surprises to anyone, because anyone who had anything new or any changes I have had discussions with. You will note that the calendar changes in the monitoring assignments change in May. And that's because Lucy has some other commitments right now that prevent her from taking on one assignment, but that will all change in May, and then hopefully that will be good for the rest of the year. So with that said, anyone on the committee have questions about this before we go out to the public? Okay, Martina, once again, can you see if any members of the public wish to comment on the monitoring assignments?
And Madam Chair, we
Have
do
no
not currently
public.
have a public.
Okay, that saves us time. Moving right along, any further discussion on this item? Okay, so that brings us to discussion items, and Mark Brown, our executive officer, has some information that he would like to share with us about how we are going to function from here on, because as you know, with this meeting, this is the end of the emergency order, so that we will be meeting in person when we next meet in March. I guess that would be the 22nd of March. So Mark, fill us in on the rules we are going to have to follow for this.
And then, thank you. Unless there's a really big surprise and there's an emergency meeting between now and February 28th, this is MWPA's last public meeting following Assembly Bill 361's exemptions to the Brown Act. And that means that we go back to following the traditional Brown Act, along with being able to incorporate Assembly Bill 2449, which has some stipulations about remote attendance. However, it doesn't make it that much easier for members of the legislative body to attend remotely. I am going to do a little screen share to put up a table that was originally authored by Novato Fire's legal counsel that Megan took some, made some edits to it. And that is just to talk about remote participation through the traditional Brown Act rules. It's simple. If everyone's in person, then we don't have to worry about any of this, but there are instances where people are going to want or would be appropriate to attend. However, I will submit to you as the Citizens Oversight Committee, following the traditional Brown Act, and they call it teleconference rules, but Zoom is a teleconference system. So Zoom falls within those teleconference rules. I'll submit to the COC. It will be difficult for you guys to exercise this, given that you're members of the community, and it's you if you are going to exercise the teleconference process, you have to be within the jurisdiction of the MWPA when you are attending remotely. B, you have to post that agenda at the site that you will be attending that meeting at. And then here's what could be awkward for many of you, since you have been attending from your home. C, you have to make that site public, and you have to make that site available to members of the public to attend. So that means our agenda would list where the address of the location that you plan to attend. Now, if you were to work out an agreement with a public space that allows you to go to it. Because I have a feeling most of you are not going to want to put your address on an agenda. And so if you don't want to drive to the commons, then if you have a public location within near your home that you can post the agenda at, that you have teleconferencing capabilities, and in our case, Zoom, and that you can attend at that location, then you can do that remotely. If that's the route that you would like to go, then we would need to know no later than 1 week in advance to the meeting. So as Martina works with the chair to build the agenda, then we list which members of the committee will be attending remotely using the traditional Brown Act. The qualification for a quorum for the following that, it could be everybody follows the appropriate remote attendance guidelines as long as they're within the MWPA JPA boundaries, then the quorum can all be remote. That's where the big difference is, that if anybody exercises one of the qualifications that's in Assembly Bill 2449, and you can see that the first, besides the expiration date, the first note is if anybody, a single member, exercises any of the provisions in 2449, now we must have a quorum at the MWPA offices present. For a 9-person committee, that probably isn't that big of an issue. We will have to notice on the agenda and identify the single public location, which we will be doing anyways. But it would also, and what we already do is put a link in there, which we already plan on doing. The MWPA has committed to keeping all of our meetings to be of the hybrid fashion for the members of the public that they can attend remotely. And then this is where one step they took a little bit further is that we have to provide for two-way audio visual for the members of the public to be able to watch the legislative body. All the votes, if anybody is working remotely, has to be roll call in both of them. Here's where there's differences between the traditional Brown Act and 2449. A member can choose to participate remotely for any reason, but again, with those stipulations that we have listed above. Whereas in the 2449, you have to have just cause. So just cause is childcare, contagious illness, physical or mental disability, travel while on business, while on MWPA business. And then you can only utilize just cause 2 times a year. The member must provide a general description of the circumstances relating to their need to appear remotely. So again, it's not one of those ones where you can just say all of a sudden, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to do this meeting from my car. There has to be a little bit of pre-planning for that. Then there's emergency circumstances. Physical or family medical emergency. It requires a separate request to the body for each remote meeting, and the body must act on that request. And again, we need to have general circumstances. Obviously, HIPAA comes into play, not specific circumstances, but general circumstances. And then if you are going to attend remotely, the member must adhere to the following requirements. If there's anyone older than 18 with you, you need to disclose that so people can understand that they actually do have a member of the public that's attending with that member in their household. You must participate through both audio and visual, not only by phone. And then you cannot participate remotely in more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of the regularly scheduled meetings. I know that's a lot to digest, but you know, going back to full in person at the MWPA offices, we have 2 choices. We can use the large board chambers, which has the audio visual set up really, really well. But depending on how we feel about things, we can actually start moving towards our conference room, which has AV set up as well. So we have a couple of different options at the site. But again, if any of you are going to attend remotely following the traditional guidelines, again, you have to have a public location. You can post an agenda, attend at that public location, and be willing to let people attend from that location. And then 2449, if you utilize one of those options, which is completely appropriate, it triggers the need for us to have a minimum of 5 members at the MWPA offices. And so I'll take questions. I'm sure there's going to be questions.
John,
Yeah, could you just send the document to us? That would be helpful. And thanks for the summary.
You bet. We'll do. Sorry, I should have had Martina attach this. I'm sorry. Apologies.
Larry Chu.
Mark, is the requirement to be in the jurisdiction a new one with this legislation?
For the traditional Brown Act, no, you'd always had to be able to attend remotely from a quorum had to be within the jurisdiction. Thank you for clarifying. A quorum had to be in the jurisdiction.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, because we have members of the public, we're not going to be going out to for a comment. Is there any other discussion on this item? Mark, just so I'm really clear, what I think most people will utilize. So we need to either be at your offices on Los Gamos or have at least a week in advance, let Martina know and given her the address of the place where we are willing to welcome the public, so that she can put that on the agenda, and those people who are doing that have to post the agenda and welcome the public in to join them in joining in the meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'll give a specific example of one of our advisory technical committee members at Muir Beach. I'm not sure if you've ever been to Muir Beach Volunteer Fire Station. It's essentially a barn. I'm not exaggerating. It's a barn. So that would not be a great place for a public meeting. But they do have the Muir Beach Community Center. So the advisory technical committee member from Muir Beach has arranged to be able to attend at the community center and have members of the public come to the community center if they so wish to attend from there.
Okay.
Good idea.
So any other questions?
Looking forward to seeing you all in person.
Yes. Will we recognize each other?
We shall.
Hugs all around.
Okay, so moving on to our next item. This is a review of a document that was discussed last August regarding a report that grew out of the committee. Rebecca was not able to attend that meeting, and she has asked that this be put on the agenda for this meeting. So I will turn this over to Rebecca.
Thanks, Pat. And it might be helpful if you all had it in front of you. If you don't, you can open it up. It was attached to the agenda. So the Monitoring Assignments Committee had met and were charged with coming up with what the committee should be, what the members of the COC who go out and observe other committees, what they should be reporting on and for what purpose. Because there wasn't any unanimity of what we were all doing. And because I wasn't there, and actually I wasn't even watching the meeting, I also didn't pay great attention to what came out of that report. I apologize for that. I had been in on the creation of the committee the month before and thought I knew what was going to come out of it. And when I finally did look at it, I didn't understand what came out of it. So what I think I'm going to do is just go through my list of questions about this and comments about it, and then open it up for discussion, if that's okay. And
I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused. Is this, it almost seems like it's an item needing action that you're asking for editing to a previous, rather than just discussion, Rebecca. I'm just trying to get clarity, that's all.
I don't think it needs to be edited. I think I need to understand, and I'm assuming if I've got questions, maybe others will have as well. The way that the discussion happened seemed ineffective to me. And I'll do a little intro about why this is churning for me. I'm realizing that you guys have not been thinking about this nearly as hard as I have. So I'll give you a little bit of background about it. John, your hand's up. You're muted.
You're muted, John.
Sorry. I'm also a little confused. The substance of this document really had, as I see it, two parts, right? The question of what we do at the meetings, which we all agreed to and we've actually implemented. And then what is thereafter were a series of observations, which I think will most likely be dealt with as we complete our reports, within each of the groups, which would be more current than what was discussed then. In other words, there was no actions taken beyond a decision to change the process of going to the meetings. The rest of the stuff, I think, becomes a precursor to the work which is occurring currently, so, or whatever that's worth, but that's my thought.
And actually it does put some different, well, it puts a different light on my questions about it, perhaps. I'm not 100% sure yet. So here's what leads me to this. The first part of, so what the committee was charged with was coming up with, when we go to observe a committee meeting that's going on in MWPA, what should we be looking for? And what should we come back and report on?
Mm-hmm.
And the first part of the discussion and the document did that. And I understood most of that. But then the back part of it, I didn't understand. About my fourth or fifth reading, I got a better clarity about what I think happened in the committee and why this discussion happened and what we got. But I'm not 100% sure. So I wanted to bring it up for everybody, because I don't think in the meeting, there just wasn't any discussion at all in the meeting.
So what happened, if I may, is that we had several new members who were trying to figure out what was going on, right? As I recall, I think it was Jennifer and I, and maybe Pat was that committee. I don't quite recall. We were struggling with a lot of things which were being talked about with some regularity. So we came together and put down some observations about a variety of topics. And then we did, and then we brought it to the full COC and wanted to find out direction was supported by the full COC. And we described each of the items. They're all individual kind of things. And as I remember, there was a uniformity of support for those items. And as far as that earlier conversation as this to be some sort of foundational document, like that at all. I think it is superseded by the work we're performing now, because there are a series of observations which were not acted on specifically. Nothing went to any boards. Those were, to me, I think the logical use of this document is to compare it against to the groups put forward in terms of their work plan and the like. And if there's something missing, make sure you're comfortable that it's missing, and if something's changed, make sure it's changed. But this, to me, seems like a document of an earlier time, which, as to repeat myself, is being superseded by now. I mean, Jennifer, would you think that's right?
Yes, definitely.
So,
And therefore we would discuss it as we do our new sets of findings, so.
well, so how it sounded and how it came out in the video and how it came out in the minutes was this whole document was accepted. And what the discussion, John, your presentation of it made it sound as if each item was being yay or nayed by whether people raised their hands to say, I've got a question or I disagree with this. And if you didn't get 3 people disagreeing with it, then you moved on, and you didn't get 3 hands on any of them. And so we moved on. So there was no discussion on any of the items. And what it made it sound like when people voted was these items were all going to go to the executive officer for Mark to take action on, which made it sound like it was going to go to the board for action. And
actually, then nothing happened. So I don't believe, I mean, Mark, you can comment, but it just kind of, that was the end of it. And I think its continuation is logically what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
so,
if I can step in, Rebecca, if you don't mind, I didn't bring it to the board because it was out of cycle with the annual work plan, and it was when you were beginning your annual work plan development. So John and I had a side conversation and said, that these concepts would be better served folded into the development of the, I said annual work plan, you see what's on my head, annual report.
And I think it informs some of the viewpoints, which hopefully we'll see in the annual report. But as far as I'm concerned, the annual report supersedes anything that's in here, except for the decision which was already made with regards to how all of us attend the other committee meetings.
right.
Can I ask a question? And this is Mark, and as I understood it from the previous process, we don't send things up to the board except the annual report, right? So I'm viewing this, I do agree that the document's a little bit confusing and it would be better to probably partition it, but I review the whole second half that you're talking about as sort of a working document, sort of an effort to process the ideas that we were working through and to understand them and to share them, and I think we'll see them again as we put them into the report.
So all of that's pretty different than I got from, again, being a relative outsider for this one, since I wasn't there for the meeting. And all I had to go on was the video and the minutes. I would say
I understand how you saw that. I think that, but today I think we can say that, I mean, it's all a process, so I can understand why you thought that, but today I would just partition those 2 documents. I don't know whether you agree, John, but I really think it's
I don't think this is anywhere near a foundational document. I just think we've already decided how we're going to deal with the committees, and the rest of this stuff is just ideas for which we will action now, and that will be our current work product, and that's that. So,
okay, I don't know what we do about having the record be clear, or if we just ignore it and assume everybody else doesn't care enough about what we do.
there's a moment in time of 9 months ago or whatever it was. So I mean, whatever.
Okay, then I will say thank you for the explanation, and I get it. And Lucy.
The one comment I would like to make about that document is that it far exceeds the remit of the monitoring assignment committee, and that as we've decided, the actual portion of it that applies to the monitoring is, I think, approved and everybody's comfortable with it. The other ideas weren't authorized, I guess is the word, for that committee to produce any of such thoughts, although they're all interesting thoughts. So that I think the thing to bear in mind is that if you're writing a report, you stick to your subject, and that would make everything easier if it's approved.
So Pat, one other comment about this. And John, you used a different setup for going through the document than I have seen used before. And we certainly haven't done it in COC. And it was that idea of going through it, asking if anybody objects, or I'm not sure I remember exactly how you put it. But since there were only 6 people there, if you got 3 people raising their hand with questions or disagreements or objections, then you would stop and have some discussion. If you didn't have 50% of the people with questions, then you moved on. I hadn't seen that.
If I can comment, I think the reason for that, and I too did find that a little unusual, but the reason for that is not that it was half the people there, but that 4 of the 6 people who were at that meeting were on that committee and had already previously agreed to all the items in that document. So John, in the interest of time, was saying, you know, if there are 4 of us who are already of the 6 who are there, so that was the reason for was you know, if that it was unlikely to change during the course of the conversation, though it was a little awkward, I will admit.
I hardly even remember this. It was so long ago. And at the time, there was no real objection. So I suggested what we're doing here is we're bayoneting dead people, dead soldiers. So, you know, I think for whatever it's worth, I think we put the document in perspective, and that's all I've got to say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you. And I'm putting the issue to rest. I do think there are some, at least that one process question for me, that it made it seem as if discussion just stopped because people weren't familiar with the process. At least that was my perception. If my perception is wrong, if people really didn't have anything to discuss, great. But if people didn't get it about the process and weren't stepping in to say anything.
Again, it was a long time ago. I can't imagine that people wouldn't understand that we're just moving through a process to talk about it. That's the whole point of a transparent conversation. So I was not muscling through this thing and saying, don't talk. I just said, let's just get on with it. And if anyone has any thoughts, let's have some thoughts. And that's a process that I've seen done millions of times. But
Well, I would like to add
it was a
that,
long time ago. So
it was a long time ago, but I did find it very odd because I did raise my hand, not because I had an objection, but because I had a question. And I was told at the time that since I was only one hand, that you would just be moving on. At the end of your presentation, in fact, Pat was kind enough to go back and say, Lucy had a question, and I asked it. But it did seem that your process was.
hey, look, anything else you want to be complaining about this evening? Can we just get on with this? Okay.
No, let me finish what I'm saying. I said that in fact was the way that was operating. I don't think there's anything further to be said, except that I hope we don't see that process used again, but we move to the future.
Okay, does anyone have any thing further they would like to comment or discuss on this item? Okay, seeing no hands, I think we have come to, if any committee members have requests for future agenda items.
I do.
Lucy?
I'd like to propose that we agendize a full committee discussion of the process through which we produce our COC reports, but with particular attention to how we meet both our standards and avoid violating the Brown Act. I'm hoping that we would have some legal advice that could help us design a process that works. But probably part of that discussion will be a proposal that we disband the report writing committee. So I'm hoping that's going to be on the agenda for next month.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
You want a second? I would second that. I don't
And,
think.
and we'll be sure to have legal counsel with us.
Good.
Okay. Larry Chu.
Yeah, with respect to putting that on our agenda for next time, can whoever is leading this give the rest of the committee just a general overview of what those standards are? You know, for whatever's existing, because if we're not part of that process, then, you know, we don't really know coming into the meeting what we're being asked to think about.
Oh, well, I think we're being asked to think about overall how we produce our documents, what the flow of information would be, what point might we be in violation of the Brown Act if there's a sort of serial deliberation. And at the same time, which I would like us to be thinking very carefully how we make sure that we maintain our standards of the work product. And if there's anything we can do with the existing one, I would love to hear it, but I'm also thinking that in the end, there might be another process that could be designed, I'm not sure, but in the end, we might just have every work plan subcommittee go straight to the full COC for specifically writing the report questions. But I'd love to hear what a lawyer could help us design.
And to help clarify, Larry, and help you prepare for that meeting, what I suggest is that legal counsel and myself prepare a staff report on the process that we understand based on, and I watched the videos today, August and September of last year, which is where the real conversations of the workflow were presented and discussed. We will write a staff report that discusses that process and then the full evaluation from legal counsel on how it does or does not align with the Brown Act. So that way you can be prepared coming into the meeting.
Okay, so that's part one. Part two was the standards in which the report is written or that you're trying to work towards.
Okay, that comes about from the time when those of us who were there from the beginning, and you were one, Larry, where we had two ambitions for the COC. We wanted it to be able to broadly go where it needed to go, and at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we were very careful about how we presented the information because we had such a broad remit. We wanted to make sure that whenever we said something, it was fully supported and clearly explained, and any number of standards and then possibly leading to recommendations. So that's a very specific process that those of us who are trained on the grand jury have been taught. I don't think it is very generally available amongst those people who haven't. And those were the standards we were hoping to use. That's why we developed a report writing committee. If that is not a functional way to do this, I would like us to also think how we might go about meeting the standards of care that a grand jury might use so that our work product is as useful as the one was last year and as well respected.
Yeah, now you just mentioned that you're using a framework for grand jury people, but we're not a grand jury.
Indeed, that is precisely the case. So that's why I'm proposing that the report writing committee be disbanded, and that whatever level of discussion and writing goes on, will have to go on at the COC level, because that's the only opportunity we all have to just speak freely. And so where that goes and how and what legal counsel comes up with for us, one of the elements that I am concerned about are the not just the workflow, but making sure that there are sufficient standards in place to make sure that we're meeting, as I used it as an abbreviation, the grand jury standards of report writing. There is perfectly articulable as some other set of standards that we could adopt.
Okay,
And just a little warning that we are getting pretty deep into discussion on a non-agendized item.
Right, absolutely.
Jennifer?
Yeah, that's partly what I wanted to say. I thought that this conversation is going pretty deep, and I hope that that's where we can go at next meeting, because I have a lot to say about what we consider our standards and how we proceed.
Mhm.
yeah, and the only thing I was really asking for was that if we have something we're working from, even if it's for us to consider, is that be provided, in kind of a quasi staff report, or just something for us to review in advance. I mean, we all recall the discussion, but there was actually no published framework,
Yeah.
because that was all done in the writing committee.
Well, I know we shouldn't discuss this, but I'm not sure that we can do that. But anyway, let's just wait and see what the lawyers think, and then we could, maybe Mark could come up with something that we could look at, or maybe not. I'm not quite sure how that could be done, but we'll see. See what the lawyer says.
Okay. Larry?
Yeah, for a future agenda item, this is almost a question more than a suggestion. Do we want to again look at meeting times? And I'm really thinking of Southern Marin and having to come during commute hours. And Larry, I think you're coming from the city, whether we should have a discussion at this next meeting about it. So it's a question, and it doesn't have to be answered now necessarily.
Okay.
When are we meeting?
What was voted on last week
Yeah,
was 3 o'clock.
yeah, that's what I thought.
afternoon
Okay.
Oh, is that
On
what
the
we did?
fourth-
Oh, shoot.
on the fourth
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, it was 3 to 5.
See you, Larry.
Yes. So
Jeez.
What meeting is
3 to
this?
5
there.
at Los
Yeah.
Gamos is
Yeah.
when we will.
Okay, so we're meeting at 3 o'clock. That's an important announcement to make, actually. So good.
That's what I thought.
And we will make sure that it is accurately reflected on the meeting agenda. So it should be Wednesday, the 22nd of March at 3 o'clock at the MWPA offices at Los Gamos. And Mark, you want to tell everyone the best place to park and come in the door?
Yes, I find it most useful if I park on the freeway side of the building. If you Google the address, it usually has you park on the non-freeway side. I park on the freeway side closest to the sheriff's office, enter that lobby. There's 2 elevators, take it to the 3rd floor. After you wiggle out of the elevator, a left and a left, we're on the left. Lots of lefts. We're on the freeway side of the building.
What do you mean by wiggle? Does that?
When you come out of the vestibule, it's kind of a zigzag.
Okay.
Right.
For clarity, Larry, did you want an agenda item, or do you now not want an agenda?
No. I was asking a question whether we need to have a further discussion.
And then
And
Martina and I
totally
will work,
mind
yeah,
that we had done this.
Martina and I will work together. There is an old invite out there that has inaccurate Zoom link information. It's just a vestige of a repeating calendar item in Outlook. So we will make sure that any of those repeating calendar invites have been killed. They won't come out anymore, and get you accurate calendar invites that are coming through, as well as accuracy on the website and the agenda.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so with that, I think we're adjourned and I don't think we need a vote for that. And it is 7:04. So see you all at 3 o'clock, 4 weeks from today.
Stay warm, everybody.
Right, thank you.
Thank you,
Enjoy.
Pat.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.